the meeting of the Monday, October 5th, Woodstock Wetlands and Watercourses Agency meeting. It is, according to my computer, 7:05. Let's have a roll call of members present. So somebody want to start?
Marla Butts, present.
Bill Rowinski, present.
Victor Peabody, present.
Stuart Peasley, present.
And Mark Parker, present. All right, we got everybody tonight. Very good. And I see Tina is logged in, so Tina is on as well, so that's good. Action on minutes of the previous meeting. I received in my packet the minutes of the last month's meeting. I trust the rest of you did. Does anyone have any comments or questions on the minutes of the September 14th meeting?
I didn't find any corrections. This is Bill.
Marla Butts speaking. I did not find any corrections and found them to be acceptable.
I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as printed.
So moved by Bill.
I second it, Marla Butts.
Motion's been made by Bill Rowinski, seconded by Marla Butts to accept the minutes of the September 14th meeting as printed. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Okay. Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Okay. Old business. We have application 08-20-21. John Wipachowski, 179 Laurel Hill Drive, alteration. Landscaping, creation of beach area, retaining wall repair, and walkway stairs.
Question, point of clarification, Mark. Marla Butts speaking. On my screen, I have two IWWA Tina LaJoys. Who are our members that are here?
Oh,
I see Stuart, I see Bill, I see me, I see you. Who's in Tina LaJoy's box?
Victor.
Victor. Hi, Victor.
How you doing?
Okay. Good. All right.
You're looking at
I
me.
just wanted the clarification for the record.
okay. Very good. Okay, so Tina, is this, which lake is this on? Is this on Bungie or is this on?
Yes, it's on Bungie.
Okay, all right. All right. So let's see, according to the minutes of the last meeting, did we need any more information on this one?
I don't believe so.
This is Bill. The sheet that was provided in this packet is all that was requested. The sequence of construction and sedimentation control process.
Are there any questions? If not, I will accept a motion to move on this permit.
This is Bill. I move to approve application 0820-21, John Wipachowski, 179 Laurel Hill Drive, alteration, landscaping, creation of beach area, retaining wall repair, and walkway with stairs, with the acceptance of the provided sequence of construction and sedimentation control.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made by Bill Rowinski, seconded by Stuart Peasley.
Victor Peabody, that was.
Victor.
I'm sorry, by Vic, excuse me, seconded by Victor Peabody. Thank you, Victor. Are there any further questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None? So moved. Okay, John, I see you on the call, so it's just, we'll sign off on this, and is it a 15-day notice, Tina? Is that what we do?
Yes, the legal notice will go into the villager next Friday, and then there's a 15-day appeal period.
Okay, thank you very much. You all have a good evening.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, bye.
Next, under old business, we have application 09-20-23, Noreen Stellick, Phragmite removal in pond. I see Bruce is on the call. Bruce, do you have any further comments or questions you need to ask?
You muted?
Did we lose Bruce?
Bruce, you gotta turn your mic on.
Yes, I have to unmute.
Hey, there you are.
Can you all hear me now?
Right. Bruce, am I correct? You were representing these two permit
Yes.
applications? Yep. Okay.
Yes, I am. And a couple of weeks ago, Commissioner Peasley and Tina LaJoy both came out and viewed both of the pond sites. And Noreen Stellick was also present at the viewings. I think Mr. Peasley put together some sort of a document or a report from the viewings, and I don't know if the commissioners have that, or if Stu would like to
I
talk.
apologize, Bruce. I sent that out late yesterday, I think. And I forgot to CC you on that just because I was running around, but I'll get the copy to you right away.
That's all right. Tina was kind enough to forward it to me.
Oh, good.
Late in the day today, so I do have a copy of it, but I didn't know if you'd like to just, go through it with the commission and let them know what your thoughts were from our meeting, instead of me trying to paraphrase what I thought.
Sure. I think it was very clear in both cases that there was a invasive species in process of commandeering the wetlands area around the pond, more so on the 294 lot, or 274, sorry, whichever the one that is, down in the southern end of Woodstock Valley. But
Right.
that one was not in a water course. And so it's more like a basin that is just overwhelmed by the Phragmites. And the discussion during that visit was about how to remove it and what to do with the overburden of the removal. And she said that, Noreen said that they had plenty of room on their property with which to dig a hole and bury it, and that it would actually provide compost, if you will, for the soil, but that it would be contained. And this would be achieved by, ideally with a small mini excavator and a skid steer I think is what we discussed.
Yeah, yeah, pardon me for interrupting, Stuart. Our major concerns were whether or not a small excavator could actually access all of the parts of the pond, and you know, a larger machine might be required. But all in all, it seemed like the proper course of action would be to try and dig the plants out along with, you know, some of the muck and what have you that would be involved with the roots, and to load them up into a truck and move them over to another part of the farm and dig a hole and put them in the hole and bury them. So one of the concerns that we would have is some of the spoils as they're, you know, being excavated or loaded into the truck will spill out, and if Marla doesn't mind, I had a conversation with her this afternoon while talking about some other things in another town, and she recommended it. And again, Marla, if you don't mind my paraphrasing your thoughts, that some sort of a small dump truck that was fully enclosed, that would not allow mud and water and whatever to spill out and along the route that the truck would travel to get to the burial point, so that mud and spoils and whatever would not, you know, hurt the environment and essentially make a mess. You know, particularly if the truck had to go out towards the road and access Route 198 for a short distance to get back onto the driveway into the farm, then there would be other things required, such as a construction entrance for the vehicles going in and out, but mainly that the truck had to be self-contained and not allow leakage or spillage of mud and water and phragmites too into the route. Sorry, that's
a good point. I think that containing the phragmites would be a real interesting task. I guess you'd have to seal up whatever dump truck so nothing would leak out the body, or if they were to maybe get a dumpster, they'd have to seal up so it wouldn't leak out.
Yeah, I don't know how that's accomplished. I believe that there are vehicles like that are self-contained and don't have openings for material or water to leak out. But yeah. I'm not, you know, I'm not a construction guy. I'm a surveyor. So,
well, they could probably put in a tarp in the dump body, and that would. I mean, that'd be one thought.
Yeah, that's true. That's a practical way to look at it.
Marla Butt speaking. Marla Butt speaking. Does she have a contractor in mind that she wants to use?
Yes, she wants to use John
for this
Donahue.
pond cleaning.
Beg your pardon?
Has she found out if Mr. Donahue has a watertight truck where the gate is sealed?
She has not, and I put in a call to John Donahue this afternoon, and I've not heard back from him.
Okay. My suggestion is there's some details that we don't have on this, and I would think that it would be good not to render a decision at this meeting, but rather let you, Mr. Woodis, figure out exactly how much cubic yardage she would like to remove from this water body or wetland area. Since it appears to be self-contained, you should be able to get an idea of how deep she wants to go You said that it was man-made years
Correct.
ago. I believe you said it was about 60 years ago or something that was originally excavated out. And farm ponds and the Soil Conservation Service in those days had criteria for what they called embankment ponds, where you had to have, for every acre foot of water, you had to have 3 acres of contributing drainage area. Now this one doesn't have it, so clearly it's a reflection of the groundwater table, not necessarily collecting stormwater and holding it. So that's not problematic. But I think what we need, you supplied in the original application a drawing that came from a printout from NECOG, where it showed the pond and it showed a wood road and it showed the barn and the driveway. I think what I would feel comfortable with is if I had an understanding of how much cubic yardage was going to plan on being moved, how deep she wanted to go, since it's been many years and it's accumulated organic matter. So the stuff that's in there is going to be pretty, it's going to have some roots in it, but it's also going to be pretty soggy, pretty loose. And knowing where the disposal site was. So if you took that drawing and modified it and added the details of where the transit path would go, so then you'd know if you needed to have a construction entrance, if they were going to go onto the street. If they're not going to go onto the street, you avoid the construction entrance. If they're going to go right through the old wood road that shows on your drawing. And then if you had identified a location of where the disposal site would be, so that we would be clear that it would not be in an upland review area and not in any wetlands or water course. So I think that we need a little more detail on this in order to clear it through. I think that's doable. It just needs a drawing. It doesn't need a surveyed map, site plan kind of thing, but it needs to show this is the access point and we're going to go this deep, remembering that the steepest embankment in a water body is 3 to 1. So I don't really know how deep her contractor is planning to go. She should be talking to her contractor to be able to get an idea of what he's advising her, what he can do, or what he's willing to do, and what she's willing to pay him to do. And that's what she should be coming to the commission with. And then we could make an informed decision.
Okay.
I just think there's too little information right now.
Okay. Well, I think that's fair, especially being able to either modify a NECOG drawing or somehow modify our survey drawing to show, the exact access point, the point of disposal, and to identify how we're going to get there. I think that's all reasonable. So, and we need to talk to the contractor. So I think we can have all that information for the next go around.
This is Bill. I have a question for Mr. Witters.
Sure.
In our minutes, it says approximately 500 to 800 cubic yards of material would be removed. Was that something that's accurate?
Well, I think that was something that we kind of put together with a rough estimate of the pond size and a rough estimate of the depth that we might excavate. I think we were thinking that we were going to excavate about 2 or 3 feet, and we took the overall size of the pond, and we did some rough calculations, and we came up with that number.
Okay, just want to verify that that's what we're actually talking about.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that we need to verify before the next meeting. But yeah, I think that's
everybody.
Yeah.
The only other comment is that this is Bill again, some might be able to find or rent a piece of like an off-road dump truck that doesn't really have the gate in the back and is just made for shuttling dirt back and forth. But it would be an expense to rent something like that. They probably come in different sizes, but could probably check with Sunbelt or something like that and see if there is something that would work for you.
Yeah, I'm not sure what John has, for that sort of thing. It would have to be something that would be contained all the way around. You know, if it was an old, you know, like farm truck with no tailgate, you'd have the issue of, you know, how do you contain the water and the mud and everything that goes along with the Phragmites and not have it come slopping out. I think that's
the off-road trucks, some of them don't have a tailgate, but they're angled just to protect the load and keep it in.
Oh, yes. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
All right. Good suggestion. There might be some other type of farm equipment too that might not be in the form of a dump truck, but some other form of vehicle that would contain, you know, not a wagon, but, you know, I don't know, anything like, even like a manure wagon, you know, it's meant to have, you know, sloppy material put in it.
Yeah.
I think she's probably got to evaluate how much she wants to spend and talk it over with the contractor.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think she wants to spend a fortune on this,
Right.
Obviously. And it's not much of a pond, really.
Right.
It's more of a mud hole right now, but she wants to restore it partly because, you know, her dad put it in there and she wants to keep it in the family, and
Sure.
so she wants to have it the way it was when she was a girl. I think that's about all I have on that one. Any other comments or questions?
Well, do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah,
I move to a table this application 0920-23 until next month's meeting, with an expectation that we'll be receiving a better drawing for the work to be proposed, that's being proposed.
I second the motion.
Motion's been made by Marla Butts, seconded by Stuart Peasley to table application 09-20-23 to next month. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Thank you. Okay, how about the next application, 09-20-24? Do we need any more information on that one?
I can pick up if you like on that. It's a little bit of a milder case of the invasion of the species, but it is in a watercourse that would need to be monitored, I guess. Although I think that William Stellick wasn't there. Noreen Stellick was at both places because they're related. And she did say that the depth of this pond at one time was it 13 or 14 feet deep? Bruce, something like that?
To my recollection, it was something in that neighborhood.
Tina volunteered to go in and find out, but we talked her out of it.
Oh, girl.
Thanks.
But I think it was 6 or 7 feet now, she said, maybe. But
hard to know, but you can tell by the weed, you know, the weeds and the lily pads and the other growth stretching out to the middle of the pond. You can tell that it's not very deep.
Yeah.
So there's probably a lot of sediment and muck and what have you built up over the years in the middle of the pond.
But this one would require a lot of management if they were going to do substantial soil removal because of it's being a watercourse.
That's correct. The other one is a self-contained hole in the ground, basically, with very little watershed to feed the pond itself. This one has an inlet and an outlet to the pond itself. It's a very long, narrow pond. And so some care is going to have to be taken if this is to be dredged and, cleaned out and made deep again, because it could affect the downstream property owners, and as well as the upstream property owners. So it's a bit more of a complicated project. I think it can be done. There seemed to be a sign out there indicating it might be considered a fire pond, an official fire pond by the town. Tina checked into it and found that it is, although there is a signpost with a number out there, it is not an official fire pond, at least at this time. And there's some thought that if it were to be dredged and cleaned out, that it would be quite a useful fire pond for that area. But we tried to contact the local fire, Chief Chandler, and Ms. Stellick sent him an email a few days ago, but he has not responded to that email at this time. But I think there's a process that you can go through to get it designated as a fire pond. And then I think that might be, it was suggested that might be the first order of business to see if the town was interested. And if at that time they were, that this maybe could be somewhat of a joint project, if the town was interested in helping out with resources, not necessarily financial ones, but otherwise.
I think that's a great idea, enhancing the fire department's resources, especially when we're facing droughts like now, because that definitely had a pretty good supply of water in it still.
Yeah, and if they were to use it at present day after a droughty summer like we've had, they'd throw a hose in there and they'd come up with a bit of water and then a lot of plant life and muck in its present condition. So, and so maybe one of the solutions to that is a dry hydrant, as a first step. But I think that something would have to be done if they wanted to have any kind of water capacity for the pond. So I don't know. Marla, do you have any thoughts on that?
I have a couple of questions for the people who went out to look at it. I'm looking at the photographs that were presented with the application. The application stated that the proposal was to remove the cattail reeds and phragmites from the edge of the pond using a mini excavator, and that the access would be from the field on both sides of the pond, and the vegetation would be removed and dispersed on adjacent field areas of the property. No disturbance of the pond banks or pond bottom is proposed. So in looking at the photographs, all I see here is cattails and reeds and floating vegetation. I don't see any phragmites. Stuart or Tina, did you guys see phragmites when you were out there?
I did not.
I couldn't identify it, but from a distance on the far side of the pond, it looked like there was a small patch. But it would probably need a closer examination.
I was not on site on this particular site.
Yes, you were. This is the
Wait,
one.
no, I was on the 294.
Yeah, we're talking about the 101030. Is it? Yeah, we're talking about we were talking about the other one. Now we're talking about the one by 197.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's so much feedback. I'm trying to hear.
Oh, it's difficult. Do you have like two computers in your office?
Yes.
Yeah, we did that at a meeting, not in Woodstock, but in another meeting, and there was all kinds of feedback. It was very difficult. You were at the meeting at 10:30.
Okay, so 10. Okay.
at the 1030 pond.
Yep.
I'm sorry that the photos don't show it, but I believe there were Phragmites at the outlet area of the pond. It looked like there was a combination of Phragmites and cattails at that end. But I did not go over and closely examine them, nor am I an expert on what Phragmites actually look like, but they look like the ones that were over at the other pond where it was extremely overgrown. So
yeah, I would agree.
My apologies if my photographs don't show that very clearly.
Is the outlet a natural outlet, or is there a dam there with a sluiceway or something?
It's like a small earthen dam with like a little overflow. It's very crude. There's virtually nothing there for a structure. It's just a little bit of earth, and then there's a overflow and a ditch down into a lower area.
I'm wondering
if water flowing out of it.
I'm wondering, because this is a water course and it could be altering the size or width of the water course. I'm wondering if DEP should also be notified on this. Marla, any thoughts on that?
Well, actually, I don't. If it's just removal of accumulated sediments, and the contributing drainage area is less than 100 acres, and it gets a local wetlands approval, no water diversion permit is required.
Okay.
So, but my concern is I don't understand why he wants to remove all the vegetation. I can understand for fire pond purposes, having a portion that's deepened maybe and having a dry hydrant installed and stuff. But the emergent vegetation that's along the edge of the pond serves a wildlife function. What would be the function? What was it that he wanted to have the pond function for, causing the reason to have the vegetation removed?
Well, one of the things that you don't see is that a lot of the vegetation that would be either Phragmites or cattail reeds is all been cut down all along the edges of the pond. I was noticing it when we met with Mr. Peasley and with Tina. And so there's only a few small portions where the reeds and the Phragmites have been allowed to grow. Otherwise, they're cut down maybe a foot tall, just above the water level. And I don't know if that growth is Phragmites or cut down reeds. I can't tell. But there is a lot of it, and it is continuously all along the edges of both edges of that pond. And so they're thinking that they're eventually going to choke out the other type of aquatic life that's in there. There were pond lilies and that sort of thing, but so that was what I heard from Noreen.
So you think it could be for aesthetics that they want to remove the vegetation?
Well, they're worried about the pond eventually just filling in because it keeps on getting shallower and shallower. So I think some of it is aesthetics, and some of it is they're concerned about that there are some Phragmites, and they're concerned that it's going to become overgrown, much like her small pond. And he wants to nip it in the bud, so to speak.
Well, dredging a pond to get rid of the vegetation along the edge, the only way you're going to stop vegetation from growing up is if you steepen the embankment, because it's going to naturally, there's a wetlands border along that water course. It obviously has marsh vegetation along the edge of it. It's not necessarily, I'm not a soil scientist, so I can't call it a wetland, but I certainly can call it a marsh. So it has a border around it of a marsh, and then you have the shallow pond coming in around it. That creates an edge effect that wildlife can use. So I was trying to understand why you wanted to clear all the vegetation away, because that would change the function of it from a habitat point of view. And was there some overriding reason or purpose that they wanted to do that? Meaning, like, did they have fish that they wanted to have growing in there, but it was too shallow, and so they needed to deepen it? You know, but the application doesn't imply that. The application just says they're going to remove the vegetation, the emergent vegetation along the edge of the pond, without really giving a reason why they wanted to do that. So I'm having a little bit of a problem.
Stuart Peasley here. I think, sorry, Bruce, just stepping in.
That's all right. Please jump in.
It seemed to me that the issue in both cases, the concerns that they were expressing was really the vitality of the pond. And it seemed like if you take the extreme on on Noreen's pond at 274, that was totally inundated with its Phragmites. They don't want to see that happen at 1030, where it's just become, it's not a pond anymore. So I think the vitality of the pond was what I got from the,
yeah,
that was my takeaway.
I seem to recall that she mentioned fish too, and they were concerned about their fish being able to survive if the pond kept going the route that it's going. And truth be told, this has sort of evolved from trying to remove Phragmites and anything else that might be invasive along the edge of the pond to more of a significant project of trying to dredge the pond to restore it to, you know, its vitality and make it better for aquatic life.
Yeah, I think she was talking about there had been uses in the past for fishing.
Well, if it's only a couple of feet deep, did anybody go on the pond and actually checked for what the depth of the water is at this point in time?
No.
Do they know how deep it is? Yeah.
We do not know. It looked like it had a very muddy bottom, and no one was willing to volunteer to walk out there and see how deep it might be. We're just guessing at this point.
Can I agree? Can I cut in, Victor? I'm going to agree with Stuart. I think the pond should get back to what it should be, and if it's for the fire department, that's just a bonus. But I think Stuart's got a good point there. It's bringing it back to a pond. I think it's all good. I'm going to have to agree with Stuart on this one.
And my comments are the same for the last application. We don't have enough detail as to the amount of cubic yardage that's going to be proposed to be removed, where the material that's going to be removed, where it's going to be placed, how it's going to get to the place that it's going to final disposal is. There's a lot more details in cleaning a pond than just what we have here in this application, if that's the intent. If the intent was to supply a deeper area in the pond to provide for fire hydrant and dry fire hydrant access, that could be identified. Rather than dredging the entire pond, you could dredge a portion of it and leave another portion in its more natural state, what I would call natural state, only because it's become that way by Mother Nature. I think restoring some of the storage capability makes a lot of sense, but wholesale pond cleaning at this point, unless there's a real functional need for that, it changes from one type of habitat to another. And the edge effect that this pond has for terrestrial animals that are dependent upon the wetlands for habitat, they use that edge. And if you remove all of it to try to take it back to what its original was, one back 60, 90 years ago, that's a little different. And we don't have an application for that. We had an application for just removing some of the vegetation, but now it's kind of morphing into something else. And I think they really need to decide what they really want and why they want it. because it is going to be a change in the ecological setting of it from what it is now to whatever they decide they want to do to it. That's my opinion. I don't think you have enough I don't think the commission has enough information to grant an approval that was requested in this. There's not enough detail.
Is there a,
I would not support it.
Stuart Peasley here. Is there a protocol where that information is provided, where one could access the steps required and how to go about it? I mean, is that something the state DEP would provide?
I don't know if they have any. Their Lakes Management might have something about it on their website. I'd have to do a little research on under the Lakes Management. They might have had something about pond cleaning, about water handling, particularly if you have water coming in and water going out. You have to be careful about the turbidity leaving the pond while you're doing the removal of the material, because it's going to make the entire water column turbid unless you somehow isolate it during the excavation phase. And what's a contributing watershed at this point? Do you know, Bruce?
I do not.
Do you know what the contributing watershed to this pond?
I looked on
Okay.
map map. I looked on the map geo for that, and it appears to be surface drainage and possibly spring, and more like springs.
Well, if we did USGS's stream stats, we could find out what the contributing watershed was. That's something that could be done before the next meeting also. But I can't see granting an approval as proposed here, because I don't think there's enough detail, and I think we're getting some information that says they might want to do something else. I think we need something a little more definitive. Like the other pond, like you've come up with a cubic yardage of how much and where. In that case, you know you're going to take it all and try to put it back to what it originally was. Well, what was the original depth of this one? We really don't know. It's kind of hearsay. The Diversion Act does allow that as long as you're just removing accumulated sediments, which means you take it to hard bottom. But we don't know how much is where hard bottom is on this pond. Which usually how you would do that is you go out in a boat, you find out with a weight and an anchor, let it drop to the bottom. That would tell you what the depth of the water is. And then you would take and have some kind of probe that you would probe and push it down until you got refusal, until you got a hard bottom. And that would tell you how much accumulation you had in the bottom, give you an idea. So that's the kind of study that I would do if you were looking to try to figure out how much cubic yardage you're going to take out of this thing if you wanted to really clean it the way you were suggesting.
Okay.
So if I understand the concerns that have been expressed, I would suggest that this also be tabled with the request that we need to know how the exact area, amount that they do, the area around the pond, if they want to do all of it or just part of it, and that's one. So we would kind of need, at two, we need to know the anticipated number of cubic yards of material that will be removed, and we also need to know where they proposed on taking it, where it will be placed, disposed of, or whatever. And I don't know, was there maybe one other thing?
Did they want to put in a dry hydrant?
If they want to put it in a dry hydrant.
Fire purposes.
So we need to have a statement from them stating if they will be doing that or not doing that. So. Well,
the reason for stating dry hydrants are use is permitted as of right. So they could put it in a dry hydrant without getting a permit. But to deepen the pond to make the dry hydrant work better, that has to come back before the commission. That's an alteration to a water course.
Right.
The installation of the hydrant itself is not. But in order to make it work, they might have to do some excavation. If that's what they want to do. I don't know if that's what they want to do.
Oh, I just remembered the other point. And Bruce, if you could find out what the watershed area is,
right.
That feeds that.
Okay.
Does that express what I think we will need to make a decision on this, everyone?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Okay,
Same here, yes.
Yeah, and I would agree. This is considerably more complicated than the other site, and it needs a little bit more planning and a little more thought, and people to make a decision as to what they want and why they want it. So I'll bring this back to the Stelex, and we'll keep this one moving. I suspect it's going to move along a little slower than the other one, because I think the other one we can provide the information that you need to get the work done. This one, we could provide more information, but I think it's going to be a more long-term process for this project.
Just one afterthought. That's where I think the right protocol wasn't the right word. What sort of methodology, what sort of practices could you research to find out how to approach this?
Yeah.
Where would someone start for that, Marla?
I don't know. I think there might be something in the 2002 Connecticut Guidelines for Soil Erosion and Sediment Control. They have a section in there of complex activities, and I can't remember if pond cleaning was one of them. I know that they had crossing with a sewer line across a water course, you know, the sequence of construction and how you sequence it so that you don't have problems with water flow. This would be similar to kind of like that, except that you're in a standing water condition, and if you're in low flow and there's no discharge from the pond, you don't have to worry about that so much. But I would check the ENS guidelines. I think it'll be somewhere around chapter 3. If it's there, if not there, then I would try the lakes management. They might have something on pond cleaning. There was a guy by the name of Jack Deering who actually was promoting a lot of, you know, the pond cleaning activities, and he was a contractor, and he was very familiar with, you know, how you had to do the activities, the sequence that you had to do it to in order to protect the water flow that goes through the pond from creating a mess downstream. And that's usually the problem with pond cleaning, is not causing a siltation problem downstream. If you
What
have
was
a
the gentleman's
water
name?
course. You don't have that problem. Jack Deering, he has since passed away, but there might be something online. He had a group, Earth something or other. But if you look up Jack Deering, D-E-E-R-I-N-G, you might find something that he might have put on the web. I'll look too, because if I find something, I'll send it to Tina, and she can send you a copy too.
Okay.
The other pond that was just before the commission it's over by Sprucedale. I can't think that they're in the process of cleaning that out now.
Yeah, Josh Pratt. Josh Pratt. Yeah.
Bassett Road. Josh Pratt.
Right.
So it was a similar sort of condition.
Yes and no.
Oh.
He actually dewatered the pond, and he had a permit years ago to clean that pond, and had come back. If you recall, he came back to us, what was it, this past year?
Yeah.
Yes.
To finish that up. So he had more details on that with us.
Okay.
And that never, I don't recall that having the kind of vegetation that this one had. And he also had a small dam just before it goes under the culvert under the highway under 171. And we reviewed that, what, 6 months ago, I think it was? 7 months ago?
Right.
Early this summer.
Is there anything from that application that would be helpful to me or to the Stelex?
That's what I was wondering.
Depends on the contributing watershed. I think you want to compare the size of the watersheds, the types of the watersheds, to know what kind of flow they got. It didn't have a very large outflow, if I recall correctly. So I don't think the watershed was very large. I think it was, the pond was partially created by the little dam in front of the culvert before you get crosses the highway. This one you said also has a small dam, but it's pretty shy, and I don't know what the elevation change is as to whether or not it's partially created by that dam or not. So it could have been flooded marshland, some of it. So.
Perhaps upstream. The area of the pond in is just farm fields on both edges, except at the extreme west end, I guess it would be, northwest end of the pond where the water is coming in. It looks like there might be a sizable wet area to the northwest. And I expect that this is sort of an overflow from that. But it seems like that whole area is very flat. So there's not a lot of relief. So there's not a lot of velocity or anything to the water that's trickling in, I don't believe. I don't think the upstream area for at least a few hundred feet changes in terms of topography. It's relatively flat.
It looked from the application, the NECOG map that you supplied with the topography, it looks like the contributing drainage area is probably pretty small. There's no water course that comes into that wetland system north of the pond that borders the north edge of the pond. It doesn't appear to have a water course coming in. So I'll bet that this has a pretty restricted watershed.
That's what I'm thinking. All right, well, we can do the legwork on that and get that information for you folks. And then maybe Tina could help me do some research on that other project to see how that was treated and how it might be similar and how it might be different.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, if you folks want to table this one as well, I'm fine with that at this point.
I will entertain the motion from someone.
I move we table this one as well. Number 09-20-24, 1030 Route 198, Phragmite removal. Tabled for next month's meeting.
Second by Bill.
Motion's been made by Stuart Peasley, seconded by Bill Rowinski to table application 09-20-24, requiring more information on what will be done and methodologies, etc. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? So moved. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Bruce, for all the work you're doing on this.
Appreciate it. Thank you all. Appreciate all your thoughtful consideration on these unusual projects.
All right.
See you next time.
Thanks,
See you
Bruce.
next one. Yep. Okay, under old business, item number D, letter D, excuse me. An application 11-19-22 M. Olszewski, Peter and Maureen, modification of use permitted as of right.
6 Swanberg will not be attending the meeting. He stands by the application to modify as a use permitted as of right.
In the packet that was given to the commission was a copy of the email that I sent to Tina on the 26th of September.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at the statute, and the statute did say that the road construction the language for essential to the farming operation does apply to road construction. So technically, road construction could fall under the use permitted as of right for agriculture. Then the next question is what constitutes a farming operation? And does the applicant have an existing farming operation? Tina?
Yes, that's been their, apparently that is a hay field. So that's what they were working on from the get-go, getting it back to a hay field.
So they have a farming operation on their property next door? They own the land to the south of this property?
Yes.
So they own the land west.
When you look at...
It's west, yeah, it's west.
And south. They own 61 Reich Road. I'm looking at NECOG's map on another computer right now. And it shows both parcels. I can highlight both parcels. And so the land that he has apparently has his farm buildings on is at 61 Reich. Am I pronouncing that right? Reich? Rich Road. R-E-I-C-H Road.
Rich Road.
So, yeah, so this field that he wants to reestablish actually abuts an existing field to the south. And the access road is located real close to the property boundary between these two properties. That's 61 Rich Road, which is, I think, I don't know, some acreage. Let's see, what's the acreage on it? I don't have the data for it. But the road, the access road that was built, runs almost within, looks to be about, 100 feet or less from the existing agricultural field.
Okay.
So why wouldn't he have gained access from the existing agricultural field that he has on a separate piece of property, but it's to the south of him? Too bad he's not here to explain why he chose not to take that route, because that would have supplied his access without having to build a road across the wetlands.
So this was an existing pathway, cart path.
Correct. There was an existing culvert on it?
Yes, a cart path there. So they replaced that pipe, is my understanding.
May I ask, what exactly defines a cart path?
It's been used for agricultural purposes for years, apparently.
What is a cart path? How is that defined? What designates a cart path versus a roadway? And how is that important?
They were utilizing the same path that's been there for many years. They weren't creating a new one.
But
as far as the definition of it.
A path is a direction of travel. A cart path and a roadway, I assume, are different. What exactly constitutes a cart?
Well,
I looked it up. I asked the question, and I don't mean to be a wise guy. Sorry, I looked it up just because I didn't know what it was. And
okay.
A cart path is something that's drawn by horses.
Okay,
a cart is drawn by horses. So is this hay going to be moved by horses?
All I
don't
can tell
think
you
that's
is
relevant.
that's what he referred to it as a cart path.
But I think that the characterization that is implied with a cart path means it's of minimal size. As a roadway, it's much larger. So a cart path is less obtrusion into a wetlands.
So keep it the same as it is, just maintain it, make it safe, usable. I'm not saying put a 7-lane highway in, but keep it within the guidelines it's in now, right now, and just maintain it. And then it would still be a cart path, but a truck could go through if it needed to.
Yeah, agricultural machine. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Agricultural machinery has, as we all know, evolved and grown over the years from horse-drawn hay wagons to tractor-drawn hay wagons to truck-drawn hay wagons. So a car path usually represents a path that was laid out either between stone walls or going through stone walls to other fields, to pull large trailers for hay or silage or haylage or whatever. So because here we are in the 21st century, and we have from the 1800s. We now have bigger machinery, and that we just need to maintain those paths so that they can still get in there with their farming equipment.
So we're only talking about a hayfield that's 1.5 acres.
Yeah.
So
I think we should let them maintain what's there.
That's
my notes state he removed a crushed and rusted pipe and replaced it with an 18-inch new pipe. So there was one there already.
Because nobody's going to use horses in if they can use a truck or a tractor.
Do we have a picture? Do we have a picture of that crossing at all? I don't recall seeing it.
I did take photographs of it. I can provide them.
I sent it in my field report.
Yeah, they are in your field report.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I see the road on picture number 4. And that's not very high above the original grade of the wetlands. And I wouldn't have a problem with that if it's essential to the farming operation. As long as there's a farming operation, which it sounds like he has a farming operation, he owns the land. It appears on the aerial photography that the area that he wants to clear was an old agricultural field based upon what I'm seeing in the aerial photography for the vegetation in the placement of evergreens. He's got a nice drumlin there. It's a high hill. And the only concern I would have is whether or not that pipe that he installed is going to cause a problem. Now, if it's very low grade and it's buried enough so that it's not going to crush when he runs his equipment over it, then the road could overtop during a flooding event, and that's all right for a farm road. It wouldn't be okay for a house lot. I mean, if you wanted to build a home up on that hill, you'd have to have a much better driveway than what he's got there. That was the only concern that I had, is sometimes people have claimed the farming exemption when for agricultural purposes and build a road where the actual intent was to provide an access way for a residential home subsequently down the road.
That's a whole other thing though, right?
But in that case,
my understanding is he'd have to come back. If he was going to do that, that would be part of his application to build. He'd have to come back to the wetlands agency. That's how we've handled things in the past.
Because he would have to, correct. But there are people who have done that. That's why I always ask, do you have an active farming operation? And is this essential to that farming operation? And that's why I looked at whether or not he had alternative accesses to gain access to the field that he wanted to reestablish. And it appears that he owns the budding land to the south. There is an agricultural field. There's a stone wall there. So I wasn't sure whether or not this road was essential to that farming operation, i.e. clearing the land to the north of his existing field. He could have gained access from his existing field. But he's not here to answer that question, why he chose to upgrade the cart path versus gain access through the agricultural field from the land to the south.
But if we look, may I jump in? The original application said that this was a restoration of a hayfield. Restoration means restore to original condition. And in that, the work that's been done exceeded the original condition. It exceeds the original condition. It's not a restoration project. The application
Well, I don't know where.
The application on many levels was inaccurate and misrepresenting. And
I couldn't tell from the documents that were received where the hayfield that was going to be restored was. He owns a huge amount of land up on the top of that hill. And I couldn't tell, and that's not regulated by the commission, the clearing of that hill, because it's not in an upland review area and it's not wetlands. But you could make the argument that the establishment of this access way was necessary to recreate that hayfield on the top of the hill. But you also can make the argument that he could have gained access from his land to the south and didn't have to build, you know, do improvements to the old cart path the way he's done it.
Correct.
So to me, I'm at 6 and 1 and half a dozen of another, because it appears as though he is a farmer and it appears as though that he wants to do something up on the hill. I just don't know why he didn't go through his existing farm field to gain access to do that work. And if he's going to create a hayfield, what's he going to do with all the stumps? He's going to have an awful lot of stumps, because that whole piece is pretty wooded now.
This is another point that I made the last meeting, is I made the suggestion inviting people to go see for themselves in person. This is a case study that I think everyone would benefit from actual seeing, and not looking at drawings, not looking at photographs, but actually seeing the existing conditions and envisioning what motivated this. The stumps that were removed already were, I watched them go by, truckload after truckload after truckload. Probably 50 truckloads, triaxles. Where did they go? We don't know.
They could have been processed in Massachusetts.
No, they were dumped on site.
They were not buried, according to them. They were just put on site on top of the hill. They were not buried.
Okay.
I did not go up and verify that, but this was already asked and answered in the past.
But we don't know. I didn't hear the answer.
He talked about it.
That might need to be verified. It's a lot of stuff.
I have to side with the farmer. I'm going to side with the farmer, and let's let the farmer do.
It's a football field full of stumps.
I have to go. We're going to 6 and 1 half dozen another. I'm going to lean towards the farmer, my opinion.
Well, you don't have all the information
around here.
I don't think you have all the information. And that's the problem. We've got baffling inaccuracies. Even in the last agenda, the minutes said there was 60 to 80 cubic feet of material brought in. That's 2 pickup truckloads. All right, so we've had a pattern of inaccuracies and misinformation that just defy explanation. So we can't make an informed decision.
I'd like to go see it then. I'd like to tomorrow. I'm off tomorrow or Wednesday, or I'd like to. I think you're right. I'd like to see it, but my gut tells me I'm with the farmers. I gotta, But I would like to do what you said, Stuart. I'd like to go.
But this is not a farmer in the classical sense of a farmer of what you might think. All right, so you have to understand that. I know it doesn't matter, but it's helping inform a guy who hasn't. He's saying, "Oh yeah, I want to help the farmer," but this is a farmer that doesn't necessarily require help. So, there's a lot of things that aren't being discussed. Now, you want to talk about the size of the culvert. The size of the culvert that went in to replacement was not sized by any engineering process. It was sized by empirical knowledge. He looked over there. I said, oh, that's what they did over here, so I'll put it here. Had he gone down and looked at Rich Road, which also bisects the same watercourse, he would have found that culvert is a 24-inch culvert. he put in an 18-inch culvert. Now, a little bit of high school geometry tells you that a 24-inch pipe has twice as much area as an 18-inch pipe.
Can you get on this meeting? Because there's some questions for you. Can you hold on? I'm going to put you on speaker, okay? Hold on.
So
Can
that's
you hear me, sir?
that's what I'm saying. There's a bunch of information that usually when you have to submit something like this, crossing a wetlands, you do the hydrological analysis, you do the topographical analysis, you record that, you do the professional level of standard that is applied to this. It's not just like, well, we're going to do this as of right and, you know, make it up as we go along, which is basically what happened.
Can you hear me? Say, hello?
So Stuart, just to make a comment to you, the nature of farm roads, road construction for farm access, if it is determined to be essential to the farming operation, then it doesn't matter. It comes in and it doesn't have to come in like a street or a driveway crossing. It doesn't have to. The question
fine.
about the size of the culvert, the size of the culvert, if it's a farm road, that road can overtop because it's not being used on a daily basis. So if it overtops and they've used a material that is solid, that's not going to be erosive, if it's a broad crested weir, that it overtops over a broad area so that it's almost like sheet flow going over the road, that's also an acceptable thing for a farm road. It would not be acceptable for a driveway. It would not be acceptable for a subdivision road, but it certainly would be fine for a farm road. My only question is was this essential to the farming operation? And the clearing that was asked for was along the street. I'm talking about whether or not he's proposing to clear up on the top of that hill, because he doesn't have, he has
Exactly.
access to be an existing farm field.
That's what
so I don't know.
That's what I think is another point to be discussed. And if I were to go ahead with this, the only way I would go ahead with this is if we did a conditional approval. But prior to that, I want to get all of this information of all my concerns, which I think are valid and need to be expressed, because I'm just baffled by the inaccuracies. I'm baffled by why the neighbors were not notified. That's a requirement on the short form application.
They don't notify the neighbors.
The short form application says notification of neighbors. Yes, it does. Look at it.
It's not really been.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's just been sort of swept through. And I think that we suffer because of that. People will.
Just a clarification, Stuart, the application form, item number 6, names and addresses of adjacent property owners. Attach a separate sheet. It doesn't say that there's a notification required. It just says that the application has to contain the names and addresses of the abutting property owners. The purpose of putting that in an application form.
That didn't happen. So there was no consideration given.
Are you listening? All right. Well,
I think we should take Victor up on his offer, and I'll be happy to go out with you, Tina.
Okay, I have
and take
Sig
a look
on
at
the
it
phone,
myself.
but he can't hear. I have Sig on the phone, but he can't hear anything, so he wasn't able to sign in for the meeting. It's difficult. So, but he needs to know what you're talking about. So I know he has spoken in the past about that being a cart path and that being used for agricultural purposes, and he's gone into great detail about that.
But
so
Tina,
I'm just concerned that he can't hear what's happening.
Again, this is just it's not been methodical. All right, so they started work improperly. Only when a complaint was filed did they file the application. The application was weak. It was uninformed. It was missing. It had omissions. And then when they did the work, they exceeded the amount of work that was described. So I just don't, this has undermined my confidence in reliability and dependability. And if it's undermined mine, other people in the community will also have the same loss.
Well, I think we need to go through all the uses permitted as of right that have been issued in the last 3 years or so.
Whether or not it's issued as of right or not, you still do the steps methodically. You dot the I's, you cross the T's.
Well, I think
that's just the way we have to do it.
Right. If you want to change the procedures, I understand, but you know,
I think we should table. I think we should table this. I think Victor should go take a look at it. I should go take a look at it. Maybe Bill should take a look at it. Maybe Mark should take a look at it, so that more than just you, Tina, and Stuart have looked at it, and then we can have a better opinion about what we're looking at. Because Stuart, your pictures were helpful, but they weren't giving me a complete picture. And I'm trying to understand how this road is essential to Mr. Lusky's farming operation. And I think probably going out and looking at it is probably the best thing to do.
I agree with Marla
at this juncture.
Let's do it.
I just don't.
I mean,
what I think is a real value in our process is clarity. And what we have here is confusion. And I want to remove that confusion as much as anything and have a process for every project that comes through that has that clarity so we don't get conflict. Confusion.
I agree, but they don't.
Breeds conflict, and that's what we don't want. Nobody wants that. It's a waste of time. We'll be chasing our tail for all kinds of meetings and possibly worse. We don't want that. So we've got to have this clarity. We cannot be relaxed. This is not fair.
This is Bill. I'd like to jump in here. It's been said before, I don't know if it's at our wetlands meeting or some of the conferences, that Marla might even said that is the state of Connecticut basically gave farmers a big pass to do almost anything they want. But I will mention what I found for a reference for this. It's a case from the Supreme Court of Connecticut. The title is The Indian Spring Land Company versus Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency of the Town of Greenwich et al. And the reference is SC 19591. And
repeat that, SC
19591.
Okay. That's the case number.
Was there?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we can look at that before the next meeting, or do you want to summarize it now?
I can give you the conclusion in the back. It says, in conclusion, the plain language of Connecticut General Statute 22A-40A1 provides that road construction directly related to a farming operation is excluded from the regulatory oversight of municipal wetlands agencies, unless the manner of that construction implicates some other matter within the scope of that oversight, as in Taylor, which is another Taylor versus Conservation Commission is the other one. Accordingly, the agency had this particular one had no jurisdiction to attach special conditions to the plaintiff's gravel access road into the northeast compartment, as the road was to be constructed solely for the purpose of transporting equipment onto the property to complete forestry work. We therefore conclude that the trial court improperly determined that the agency had jurisdiction over the plaintiff's access road and improperly rendered judgment dismissing the plaintiff's appeal. The judgment is reversed and the case is remanded with direction to sustain the plaintiff's appeal. In this opinion, the other justices concurred. And it continues with footnotes after that.
So I'll take a look at that before next meeting and see if I can understand how it might apply to this particular case. But I think we should table this issue now till next month.
I think also that I would refer you to the citizens' comments that were written, or the letters, as a matter of fact that would pertain to the lack of information in the application about neighbors, what this water course, how it might impact the other side, and you know, that has not been discussed.
Yeah,
So that'll be another.
Is it possible
Sorry.
for one of those citizens is on the phone? So my name is Meryl Reese. Is it possible for me to just make some quick comments here?
No, not right now.
Okay.
Citizens' comments.
Yep. Citizens' comments. Yep. But I will entertain a motion to table.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Marla Butts, seconded by Stuart Peasley to table this pending investigation of further information for clarity. And if all the members could take some time in the next month to get out to the site and take a look at it. And maybe even take a look at this case number SC19591. But we need to collect more information. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? So moved. Okay. Next item of business, in the Wetlands Agent Activity Report.
Oh, let me find that. Hold on. I'm away from my desk right now. Well, I do have a couple of applications that I'm working on right now that have not been processed. I did process an application for the construction of a metal garage within the upland review area on 3 Windswept Drive. I did process an application for a driveway off of 171 that was in the upland review area. I did process an application for the removal of a tree near the shore of Lake Bungay, as the Bungay Association, they do require that there be a permit and something in writing on that for any tree removal near the shore. And I did go out and I did take a look at Roseland Park, that property across the lake, and did determine that a lot of the vegetation was removed down. It's pretty sloped toward the water. So the owner of that property is Charlie Puffer, and I do need to send him out a letter to have him come in and explain or send something in writing. So that is yet to be addressed. And there is another complaint that I still have to look into on 198. I think that's it for now.
I have a question, Tina.
Yes.
In the packet you gave us email printouts and the Northeast District Department's helps approval for the gas station, and I noticed that you also sent the Natural Resource Conservation Services National Design, Construction, and Soil Mechanics Center technical note on filter diaphragms for CO-1 structures.
Yes, that's from our town engineer.
So I know, yeah, and the approval, if I recall correctly, for that permit said that they needed to submit details for the anti-seep collar and for the compaction requirements on the dike for the detention basin. Have you received anything on that? And where does the planning and zoning stand on that this application?
It's still pending before planning and zoning. So that conditional approval was submitted or will be for the next meeting to planning and zoning. So it is still pending, and I have not received those items. I did receive approval from the health department. I know that was one of the items that we did not have. So we do have that.
Yes, so in reading the documentation on the anti-seep collars, it was unclear to me what kind of design this detention basin was in relation to that literature. Was it a TR60 structure, or was it not a TR60 structure? So that's something I'll talk with you later on, because
okay.
I'm not quite understanding, and maybe you can find out, you know, exactly what kind of structure the town engineer felt this was in relation to that handout that you gave us. Okay. So I'll contact you sometime in the next week or so.
All right.
Okay. I will add, just for the record, that I was contacted today by Mike DiOrio, who is a resident on Quasset Lake and a member of the Quasset Lake Association, and he told me that the president of the association has been contacted by George, and I can't think of the gentleman's last name, but he came before the commission, I think, a couple of months ago, 2 or 3 months ago. He wanted to remove and repair the stone wall along his property.
George Haley.
George who? Yeah.
Eric Haley.
Right. So I instructed Mike to contact you, Tina, because apparently he has contacted the Lake Association and has determined that it is too cost prohibitive for him to, you know, remove and repair the stone wall. So what he wants to do is he wants to build a cinder block wall just out in front of that, to capture a little bit more of the shoreline. So I told Mike that I couldn't discuss it with him, but that I thought that, you know, we had approved, you know, the permit, you know, for him with certain conditions, and I didn't know if that was one of them in him, and he would need to check with you to check on that. So
I don't think that was approved. I think he went away to Florida, and I don't think we ever.
Oh, okay.
Remember? Yeah, that was like in December.
This is Bill. That last year, it was actually a year ago that we discussed that in.
Okay.
We were looking for, or I requested verification of where the property line is, and that the Lake Association verify that where the activity is occurring is acceptable. Like Tina just said, that he was going away from Florida and was planning to come back in the spring, but we haven't heard from him this year yet.
Right. Okay. Thank you for reminding me that. Right. So at any rate, I instructed them to contact you, Tina. So just so you can be on the heads up that I guess let me look at Mike's text message to me. Andre Bissett is the president of the Quasset Lake Association, and Mike said that he will be calling you regarding this matter. So, okay, so So I'm
All right.
guessing if he's going to be wanting to build another wall out in front of the existing wall, then he'll probably need to come to us for with an application for that.
Yep. Yep. So
Okay.
I apologize. I was trying to get Sig on the phone earlier. I'm on my phone and I wasn't able to mute, so I apologize for that disturbance. But he was not able to hear anything, and his hearing is not so good. So I wish that we could have had him speak. These Zoom meetings are really impossible for some people.
Yeah. I think it was a wise thing that we did to table it, because even if he had been able to answer some of the questions, I think there's still some others that we all need to see with our own eyes. So, you know, as Victor expressed. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. Other administrative business. Okay. 119 Crooked Trail Extension. Do we take care of that?
Well, we did have some information that came in yesterday, and unfortunately it was too late to get it on for this evening's meeting. Mr. Fregon did respond finally. I guess they were inundated with emails at DEP, and he apologized for his late response. So we certainly, you'll have it in your next month's packet, and hopefully we'll have additional information.
Okay,
there was testing, you know, verification of some testing that was done. I don't really have all the details at this point.
Okay. Communications. Now these letters that were in our packet, would we consider these letters under communications, or where would we consider these?
Who are they from?
Yeah, well, there was one here. From Pamela Peasley Hunter.
That goes along with that application for use permitted overbreak.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. Okay. Anything under bills? Anything we need to approve?
Mark, before you move on, one of the items that was in our packet was a notification from the Society of Soil Scientists of Southern New England. And they used to send out if you're a member of that society, you are a qualified soil scientist. You don't have to be on the society in order to be qualified as a soil scientist, but anybody who's in their registry is a qualified soil scientist. They used to put out a printed book, and they give 2 to every town, one for the wetlands and one for the conservation. But because of COVID and cost reasons, they're only posting it online. So they have this letter identified the location of that listing. And I didn't know if we had a section on our web page that allowed us to identify resource links for information. This would, if somebody's looking for a soil scientist, this would be a good resource for to be identified as a link on our web page. I don't know if that would be possible to have that added. Do we have documents on our web page for resource information, Tina?
Yeah, we're just starting. I mean, the website was just updated, and we are getting as much on there as possible. Cindy, our board administrative assistant, is going to be working on updating all the pages that we have, so we can provide it to her. And I guess it's a lot easier to work with this website that we have to get things on there.
Okay, so if we could add the link, they give the URL in the correspondence that they sent to us. And so you could actually establish a link for that organization. It's one of the interesting websites they might find helpful. It's not advertising for any particular soil scientist, but it does give people a place to look to see if somebody is qualified on that registry.
That's good.
Okay, I'm sorry. That's all I had.
Okay, good.
Who's working on the website?
Well, now we have the ability to have more than just one person handle the website. So, you know, Cindy, who is our administrative assistant for land use, she also does our minutes. She will be able to get into the website. She has a username and password to get in there. I'm not sure how much she learned at this point, but it's happening now. So
Because
we'll be
those
able
kind
to
of things
update our
that like
site.
Marla is suggesting is like done in the back, what they call the back pages of the website. So
Yes.
if Cindy is, you know, versed with this, then we should just, you know, submit these requests to Cindy, right? One thing also I noticed on our website is that the current members aren't listed.
Yes, I know that all has to be corrected. You know, once we went over to the new, I think things are going to start getting corrected now.
Just being familiar with the back pages, she can do that and like click, 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 done. So, I mean, it would be, the thing about a website is that you have to be constantly working on these. So at least once a month, once every 2 weeks is optimal. But
right.
But if we had more activity, that would be great. I don't know if that's possible.
Just for reference, this is Bill. I don't remember exactly, it might have been a couple of weeks ago, but contacting through the website, email contacts through the website wasn't working because the little CAPTCHA feature at the bottom was not properly working. So I don't know if that's been corrected yet.
I don't know, but I mean, if this new website just went live like in the last 30 days, so
yeah,
I would imagine it will take time to make some corrections, but Cindy is doing the minutes, so she's hearing what you're saying.
Yeah, Crystal knows about that problem also. It has been in contact with the website developers.
Okay. I know I'm not working on it, so it's not me that's doing anything.
Okay. So we have nothing under bills that I haven't received anything in the mail to sign off on anything, so I guess we're all right.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Good. Okay. Citizens' comments, other topics. So do we have any citizens still listening in on the call that would like to comment or share anything?
Yeah, apologies for jumping in too soon, but this is Meryl Reese, and I did want to reference the discussion on the Oshulski application. And just as a landowner in the area, you know, I don't live there full time, but I'm on the deed for the property at 33 Rich Road, and I'm out there pretty much every weekend. And you know, as I saw this work underway, you know, it's pretty extensive work. And I guess I would just reference that, you know, whether it's today or in the future, and I understand you all are going to go look at the work that's been done, which I think is great. I think just as an understanding that the property, again, that you know, kind of adjoins the Oshulski property, and we actually have a pond that is fed by the wetlands in the area. And so just want to make sure that, you know, things are preserved, nothing is disrupted. The pond is quite an attraction point on our property, and we've got quite a bit of wildlife in the area. And so again, just really felt strongly about wanting to represent that perspective in this meeting.
Yep, thank you. Okay, any other topics, business?
Marla Butts speaking. There was also in our packet about algae blooms at Witches Woods. Does anybody else get that in their packet?
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah, now cyanobacteria, the blue-green algae, you get blue-green algae blooms when you tip the nitrogen phosphorus ratio towards nitrogen. So if they're having algal blooms of cyanobacteria at Witches Woods, then one of the things that the association should probably be made aware of is that the putting of fertilizers on the lawns, nitrogen fertilizers, should be carefully done only when the pH is balanced on the lawns. Because if they're putting nitrogen down just to try to get more grass, it may be that the pH is too high, too acidic, excuse me, too low. If they just use a little bit of lime, they wouldn't have to add so much nitrogen, which then would wash into the lake. So I would say if they're seeing cyanobacteria blooms, blue-green algal blooms, they got to start looking at how they're applying nitrogen near the water. So if you can transmit that information to the chair of the association or the president of the association, that they get the word out, hey, if they don't want to see these keep happening, getting worse, then be careful about how they use nitrogen fertilizers on their lawns.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If there's nothing else for this evening, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Bill.
A second, Stuart.
Motion's been made by Bill Rowinski, seconded by Stuart Peasley to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So moved. At 8:47.